actually waiting or not. All right. We'll see if anybody pops in. I forget if it tells you how many people are watching or not.
Oh god, no, it wasn't on me.
Hmm?
It was on like a selfie mode?
Oh, yeah.
Video? I was
Yeah.
like, no!
It opens up on selfie, and I'm like, I don't want that. They don't want to see my face.
I'm like, I don't want to see my face.
That sounds like somebody fell. And you're streaming the ISM's page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got one viewer.
I'll go live when you want me to go live on our page.
You can go live whenever. I figure we'll just start and people can pop in as they go, as we go. Because it'll go up at the end as a whole video anyway, so. What time is it?
12:58.
We'll get focused a couple more minutes then. Just so no one can blame us for starting early. Oh, that's Jersey, that's what that is. Oh, Kevin's here.
Alright, I have 101.
101. All right, we'll get started, and hopefully people will filter in as we go. So hello to our current viewers. We are here in Becuna's forward torpedo room. My name is Greg, and over here we have Alexis. She is live streaming from ISM's main Facebook page. We are going to give you a tour of the submarine because it is currently closed for COVID, but today is the 75th anniversary of the Japanese surrender for World War II, so we figured this was a good idea just to kind of try things out, and if this goes over well, perhaps we'll do more live streams in the future. You won't get to see too much of my face today, but that's all right because that's not what you're here for. If you guys have questions, type them in, and I will do my best to answer them as they come. All right. So to start off with, Becuna is a Vallejo-class submarine. She was built in 1944, served 5 war patrols during World War II, and sunk reliably, we say, 3.5 ships. We are currently standing in the forward torpedo room. So there we have tubes here. But this image here kind of gives you an idea of the differences. So today she has a Guppy 1A modification, which is the lower image. The top image is as she was built back in 1944 and how she looked during her World War II service. So again, we're in the forward torpedo room. Up here we have 6 torpedo tubes as opposed to only 4 back aft. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll save most of the torpedo talk for the aft torpedo room because that's where we have a real torpedo. This one is fake. So I'll be able to answer more questions about torpedoes back there. But up here, just to give you guys a general idea of what we're looking at, this is the forward torpedo room. All right. Any questions so far? I don't think I've missed any. Alexis, shall we continue?
Let's go.
All right, we are going to enter the forward battery. I'll wait for Alexis to catch up so none of them miss talking. All right, so what you're seeing as we walk through this space is officer's country, but this is the forward battery because below the deck through the hatch right there is the forward half of Becuna's batteries. She's a diesel electric submarine. The batteries are essentially 126 cells each. There's one below us here, and there's one below crew berthing, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But you are seeing here the staterooms. This is for senior officers. We passed the wardroom and junior officers already. And then this is the captain's stateroom. He's the only man aboard who gets his own stateroom, although given the size of it, it's probably not that much of a comfort. And back here we have berthing for 5 chief petty officers. And then last but not least, we have our human shack. So this is where the ship's human would take care of all the paperwork, clerk type stuff, office work, that sort of thing. Again, I'll wait for Alexis to catch up with us. Watch the deck's a little slippery in here because of the hydraulic buildup. So we're now in the control room, right? So the control room is below the conning tower. The conning tower is up the ladder there. The control room is largely used for diving. As the name suggests, we control a large portion of the boat from here. There's a few stations of note. So the first is back here in the corner. That's your trim manifold. So that lets you move water through your ballast tanks so the sub maintains an even trim while you're submerged. Next to that is your dive planes. So each one of those wheels controls a set of dive planes, one up by the bow, one back by the stern. So these are not steering wheels. And these help the submarine dive while it's submerging or ascending. To help with that, you have your deep depth, deep depth is in the center here. And then shallow depth is one on each side. Becuna has a test depth of 400 feet and a crush depth of approximately 600 feet. And then I'm gonna get in Alexis's way here. This here is the hydraulic manifold, right? So all of those lights correspond to a hatch opening somewhere on the boat. It is colloquially known, you can see the slang term there is Christmas tree, because the lights on it are red and green. So if the light is green, the corresponding hull opening is closed. If the light is red, that means it's open. And the port side, or the left side rather, is all outboard vents, so ballast tanks and that kind of thing. And then the right side is inboard valves. So the right side is not currently working because we've been having some circuitry issues, but it should be lit up as well. All right. Then over here we have auxiliary helm, which is that thing right there. We also have our motor order telegraphs and gyro compass repeater. Our gyro compass is below the chart table right here. So you can see that. But this is an auxiliary station. All this is also up in the conning tower where the main helm is. This is down here just in case the conning tower floods or becomes compromised and unusable in some way, the crew that's stationed up there will close the hatch, jump down here, and take up positions here so we can still maneuver the boat. Over here, we have our compressed air manifold. So that's what all the brass is. No, the sub does not still run underwater. She can go down once, but she won't be able to come back up. Also, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll answer. The compressed air on a submarine does everything from diving and surfacing the boat to flushing the toilets, as well as starting our engines and a whole bunch of other stuff in between. Contrary to popular belief, if you guys think of a submarine like a hot dog, the ballast tanks that wrap around the bottom of the boat are the bun. Where we are currently is called the pressure hull, and that is the hot dog. When a submarine dives, flood ports on the bottom of the pressure hull will open up, allow seawater to flood the ballast tanks, will go down. When we want to surface, we have to remove that water, so the flood ports are opened up again, and compressed air is forced into those ballast tanks using the compressed air manifold, pushes the water out, we gain buoyancy, and we come back to the surface. I hope that makes sense. All right. Let's see, do you want to go up in the conning tower?
Sure.
Sure? All right, I'm gonna pass you off to Alexis real quick while I climb the ladder. Alright. Are you coming up too? Or no? As you can see, climbing through a submarine is like climbing through a jungle gym.
The conning tower. Can you see this right over?
Yeah. All right, so we are in the conning tower. So again, mentioned before, our main helm is up here. So you can see again, there's a motor order telegraphs. You have the gyro compass repeater, and over by the underneath the right motor order telegraph is a rudder angle indicator. Over here, we have our two periscopes. We have the number 1 scope, which is an observation scope, and the number 2 scope here is an attack scope. So, see if I can work this. This will let me work it with the thing that I have mounted on here. I don't think it's going to. Nah, I can't get it flush enough. I tried. Maybe Alexis will have better luck, because you don't have this mounting on your phone. You might be able to get your lens actually flush with the eyepiece.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you press that up as far as you can, it should focus. Somewhere. Oh, I had it. Yeah, there you go. So it is the view through the periscope. If you go to ISM's page, you can see the view through the periscope. And there are our partners across the river. I like to keep the periscope aimed at them because it tells them who's boss. I don't think any of them are watching another though. Alright, and then behind me, I'm trying to get a good shot of this. Our conning tower is open normally to the public every first Saturday of the summer months. Typically, we do what's called Submergent Saturdays, where we have our volunteers. They'll come in and man the conning tower for us. Typically, it is not open to the regular tours. But this here is our torpedo data computer. This is a Mark IV. This is essentially your fire control for our torpedoes. And so there's 3 sections. One section over there takes in information for your target, so range, bearing, speed, that kind of thing. The center station, this is what upgrades it from a Mark III. This takes your own ship's information, and instead of having a guy put in manually, it takes in information straight from either the periscope or sonar or radar, whatever you're using, and you can adjust with those right there. And then this is your angle solver. This is what's going to give you your gyro angle solution, so that when you set your gyro angle for the torpedo in the tube, this is what does that for you. So if anybody is good at trigonometry and that kind of stuff, sine, cosine, that is basically the math that this does for you. And then over here, this is the ladder up to the open air bridge. We'll probably not go there today just because it's not in that great of a condition, but we'll see. We'll see where we're at. All right, we're gonna head back down, so I apologize for any awkward video caps for the moment. All right, we made it. Yeah, you want me to take your phone?
I apologize, ISM page viewers. I am not as graceful as Greg.
Graceful is a very, very generous term for what I am. Don't worry, I didn't catch any of that.
I gotcha.
All right. I'll let Alexis collect herself, and we'll keep going. Alexis isn't used to this. She's usually not down here.
I am not novice compared to Greg.
Here we have Becuna's radio room. Fairly standard for most fleet boats. All right, this is the mess deck and galley. So here's our galley. If you think your kitchen at home is small, imagine working here. Our mess deck has 4 tables. Each table can sit roughly 6 guys at a time, so you can feed 24 in one go. Becuna has a full crew of 80 men. 8 of those are officers. They're taking their meals up forward in the wardroom. But the other 72 have to be rotated through here. 4 meals are served a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight rations or mid-rats. And that's basically leftovers from lunch or dinner. And it's just to ensure that every man on board gets 3 meals a day, just in case his watches don't cover one of the more traditional meals. I'm going to hand you back to Alexis real quick. I'm going to open up the sonar room.
Remember, for all of you that are watching, if you have any questions as we move through the submarine, please enter them into the comment section below.
Look at you being all professional. I'll just go down if you want to give me both phones, because there's not a lot of space down there.
Okay.
Just let me turn the lights on real quick.
Sure.
Just a letter. Alright. We're taking over both streams for the moment because, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of space down here. This is Becuna's sonar room. So when she was originally built, this was located up in the forward torpedo room near the aft end. You might have seen some of the machinery still there, the stacks there. Becuna has I feel out of breath doing that tiny ladder, but she has a BQS-4A and a BQR-2B sonar sets. The BQR is passive listening. The BQA, or the BQS rather, is your active ping that you hear in the movies. I'm trying to do my best managing both phones. Sometimes I forget. We also have storage for electrical parts and that kind of thing down here. And you can see the walls are soundproofed. Then on the other side of this wall actually is our refrigeration spaces. All right, Alexis, where'd you go?
I'm right here.
All right. Yeah, the sonar room is one of those spots that's kind of out of the way, especially for us as a guppy boat. It's not fully restored, but it is one of those wish list projects. And then moving aft, we have crew berthing. This is the after battery. So again, other half of Becuna's batteries are below that hatch. We do still have our batteries. Unfortunately, the lighting down there no longer works, so you can't really see anything if I open that hatch. This here is Hogan's Alley. I have yet to figure out why this portion of crew berthing is called Hogan's Alley. So if anybody knows and would like to enlighten me, that'd be most appreciated. But as you can see, we have the medical locker back there as well. There are 35 bunks in here, which again, if you do the math, crew of 80, 8 officers and 5 chiefs up forward, that leaves 69 guys or so to rotate through bunks here. There's enough to accommodate everyone if you're rotating through 2 guys per bunk. You do get to spread out. You may have noticed the bunks in the torpedo room. There are more bunks back aft as well. So there is some room to spread out, but there are enough bunks in here to accommodate everyone if necessary. Base crew of 80, at one point Becuna did have 120 men on her, so things got cramped. I think I mentioned that earlier, the medical connor. Submarines would not have carried a doctor, but they would have carried a pharmacist mate. And so they're kind of like, you know, I guess basic level first aid. They can prescribe you an aspirin or something like that. Despite that though, there are several records, I think 3, of during World War II of submariners getting appendicitis and the pharmacist mates having to perform emergency surgery using a butter knife from the kitchen that was sharpened on the lathe, and just the pictures in their textbooks. And as far as I'm aware, all 3 were successful surgeries. So that tells you a little something about submariner ingenuity, right? This here is the shower and the sinks, and then crew head. I mentioned earlier that the heads are flushed not with water but with compressed air. So you can see the valves on the side there. If you turn them the wrong way, instead of blowing everything out, if those, you can see the toilets themselves are closed currently. If those are open, everything's going to come back at you as opposed to going where you want it to go. So be mindful of that. This is our forward engine room. Becuna was built by Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut. So her engines are General Motors V16s. Back for distracting me, sorry. V16s. So we have 2 of these in the forward engine room, 2 more in the aft engine room, which we'll see in a moment. For 4 engines total, each engine is connected to an electric generator. So the engines themselves do not actually propel the boat forward. They are here to provide power to the generators. The generators then provide power to either the batteries for charging or directly to our electric motors for propulsion. Both engine rooms are more or less exactly the same. The difference between forward and aft is up here. We have 2 freshwater stills, evaporators and distiller units. These can produce about 1,000 gallons of fresh water a day. Most of that water is going to our batteries, however. Our batteries are lead acid. And so the chemical reaction that takes place between the sheet of lead and the sulfuric acid dries the acid out every now and then. So you've got to refill it with fresh water. If you use seawater to do that, you generate chlorine gas. And that's not really good for anybody's health down here. So we use fresh water for that. Typically speaking, the crew would be able to use the fresh water to shower once a week. And it's one of those 2-minute Navy showers, not anything like you're used to at home. I'm reading backwards. Hang on. Brit speak, huh? I don't know. I've heard it 2 ways. I've heard folks tell me that they're submariners, but I've also heard folks say they've never served on a submarine. So I've heard it both ways. This is the aft engine room. So once again, more or less the same as the forward engine room, minus the evaporators and distillers. We do have a snorkel installed. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. This is our maneuvering room. Becuna has a single unit electrical cubicle, so that is what you're currently staring at right now. I'll wait for Alexis to catch up. Alright, so you can see just how big the cubicle is, how much of the compartment it dominates. Alright, so again, we do have a single unit cubicle. Later boats, like Torsk down in Baltimore, they have a split cubicle. It's set up against the forward bulkhead and saves some extra space. I'm sure you do. I used to work on Torsk before I came here, so I know her intimately. I make a lot of comparisons between her and Becuna because she has Fairbanks Morse engines too. So it's nice to have the 2 boats that compare to each other. Right, so we have our gauges here. The starboard side, starboard side of the boat controls the starboard side of the cubicle controls the starboard side of the boat, and that includes generators 1 and 3, engines 1 and 3, and the motor that we have beneath the deck. And I'll drop down there in just a second. The 10 bus switches here, again, control everything, and again it's symmetrical, so starboard side controls the starboard side of the boat, port side controls the port side of the boat. So this is for your direction motor, a header or stern for the starboard motor. This is your starter lever. Oh, wrong one. That one. That's your starter lever. and that cuts in resistance as the motor is initially starting up until it gets up to speed and proper, what's the word I'm looking for? Not voltage. Current. Proper current. These two control generators 1 and 3, and you can set the power coming off the generators to go directly to the motor or to the batteries for charging, depending on the position you put these levers in. And it's the same thing for those, just the other side of the boat. Right? This lever is a bit of a mystery to me because it's supposed to have a forward and after battery written on it, but it just has series and parallel on it, and there's nothing in any manual that I found to tell me why the change has been made. So that is what that is. That board. Bafford. That board. I don't know if Bafford's paying attention anymore. If that is the board Bafford is talking about, that's just kind of like a cheat sheet for snorkeling. Different speeds and charge rates. So there's one on both sides. Keep in mind too, we do have the altimeter here on the starboard side, just in case something happens to the snorkel. If it gets plugged or the clapper valve doesn't work, we can then keep an eye on the air pressure in the boat, and if that jumps and starts to climb, we'll throw emergency shutdown, close the engines off, and divert to battery power. Alright, I'm going to give you to Alexis again so I can climb down into the motor room. This is another one where you just pass me both phones.
Okay.
This one is even tighter than the sonar. And these are our motor rooms. It's kind of dark and cramped because that light has gone out. But we have two motors. They're connected directly to the propeller shafts. So there's both sides there. But these are located beneath the electrical cubicle up top there. So.
Sorry, got it.
Come back up. Yeah, we're trying to go into spaces that aren't usually covered on the public tour. Sonar, spaces like sonar and spaces like the motor room are often asked about, but as you can see, for space limitation reasons, not really conducive to the public tour. So we figured this kind of virtual live stream tour is a good way to show you guys some of those more hidden parts. All right, so we have now reached the back of the boat. We are in the aft torpedo room now. So we only have 4 tubes back here. I did promise you guys torpedo talk, so here we go. We have one, actually we have 3 of these, but this is a Mark 14 steam-driven torpedo. Those of you familiar with the Mark 14 will know the issues that it had during World War II, most notably the exploder, the Mark 6 magnetic exploder. We have a box over there that says Mark 6 on it, but that's not actually what's in the box. But the basic parts of the Mark 14, the brass head here is the warhead, which, if I remember my numbers correctly, it's around 660 pounds of Torpex, which is just shorthand for torpedo explosive. Strength-wise, it's about 50% stronger than TNT by volume, so it does create a big boom. The second middle portion here is a compressed air flask, helps with the buoyancy of the torpedo, as well as feeds into the combustion chamber where it mixes with alcohol to explode and create steam. That steam turns the turbine here, which in turn turns the screws at the end. Right? Now the big problem with the Mark 6 was, in theory, it was designed to allow the torpedo to pass under its target ship, sense the magnetic field of the hull, and detonate. The Navy never properly tested it, so that didn't work out quite so well. We had issues with that up until 1943, when Charles Lockwood takes over. He does his own tests, discovers that the captain's complaints are valid because captains are taking this to war, and they're coming back and they're reporting that the torpedoes are running deeper than they're set to run by about 10 feet. They are also exploding prematurely, or they're not exploding at all. And so he does his own tests, finds out that these complaints are valid, because up until that point they've just been kind of brushed off. He orders the magnetic exploder replaced with contact exploders. Contact exploders are more reliable, but the trade-off is now, instead of having one torpedo striking the unarmored keel of a ship, you now have to hit the armored belt and overcome those kinds of defenses. So it takes more torpedoes to sink a target depending on what it is you're shooting at. The Navy, I believe, estimates that it would take 4 of these in roughly the same place to overcome the torpedo defenses of an Iowa-class battleship. So, just to give you an idea of what they were working with. Not because, at this point in the war, subs are going after unarmored merchant ships. It's not that big a deal. And by the end of 1944, so roughly within the span of a year, Japan's merchant marine is largely wiped off the face of the ocean. So, within 1 year of making that change. We play with New Jersey because a bunch of us over there work together back in Baltimore. Ryan's their curator currently, so we like to play back and forth. At least I do. Because, again, we're the boss. They're not. Alright. I believe that brings us to the end of the tour. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to stay here until my phone runs out. My phone battery runs out, rather.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we know exactly where Becuna was today, 75 years ago?
Not off the top of my head, but I do have her patrol reports, so I can figure it out. Thank you. Everyone approves of you, Alexis.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I think we'll sign off from here. And if you guys liked it, let us know in the comments again. Maybe we'll do more of this stuff in the future. All right. So, signing off.